Hi everyone. I am Balaji. I am a trainer in Trishana Technologies. I work as a freelancer. Here today on today's demo, what we will be learning is we will be understanding what is AWS is about and what is DevOps is about. First, let me take you to the AWS. AWS. Now here in AWS, there are different certifications which is available in the market. If you have taken to the AWS website, let me take you to the AWS website. These are the certifications which is available in AWS. Initially, you are supposed to start with AWS Cloud Practitioner and you can go for Solution Architect or System Operations Administration or Developer. Now, what we will do in Trishana is basically we will do all these three certifications. Usually in organizations, I mean to say in industries, they will expect the solution architect. Now, what do you mean by a solution architect? Solution architect will, in solution architect, will learn from the basics to and setting the architecture and designing the architecture end to end will understand in the AWS. Now, when you have joined for this AWS solution architect, what we will do, even though you have not completed this cloud practitioner, in solution architect, we'll cover the basics, then we will be taking you to the solution architect. Now, what we will do in AWS Solution Architect, before going to AWS Solution Architect, first we will cover the basics of computers, basics of computers in the sense, what is software and what is hardware and what is kernel, how your applications will get communicated with your hardware with the help of kernel. We will be covering all of these topics. Then we will be taking you to the virtualization. Now, what we will do in virtualization is, in today's market, all the cloud infrastructure, it can be AWS or GCP or it can be Azure. It has to be set up on virtualization. Now, in olden days, we used to, whenever we wanted to set up any kind of IT on-premises infrastructure, we used to go for on-premises servers. Instead of going for on-premises servers, we used to go for virtualization. We can create a virtualized environment. Now, what is the difference between physical bare metal servers and what is virtualization? We will understand. In virtualization, we will understand about what is type 1 and type 2 hypervisor, why people wanted to go for type 1 and type 2 from the physical servers. We will understand here. Then we will be understanding about installation of Linux here. Now, in the installation of Linux, what we do, you know, there are different flavors of Linux operating systems like Ubuntu, SUSE, Solaris, Fedora, CentOS. There are different flavors of Linux. We will understand here how to install Linux operating system on your virtualization. We'll be going to we'll be understanding some of the virtualizations. Like there are different vendors in the market who will provide the virtualization environment. Some of the vendors are like VMware and Microsoft. The other one is Citrix. We will take any of one virtualization environment and we will see how to install Linux operating system on virtualization end to end from scratch. And we'll be discussing about basics of Linux. Now, why we are focusing on Linux operating system? You know, today's world, Linux is open source and it is very secure. Now most of the servers on AWS has built on Linux comparatively to the Windows. That is the reason majorly we'll be focusing on Linux. As well as we will be covering what is required for Windows also, both the operating systems. Now, as I said in initial stage, once if you have completed this course, that indicates that you are for AWS solution architect. Now, before going to the solution architect, what we will do with free of cost, we will be training you the cloud practitioner and we will be taking you to the solution architect. Now, solution architect. In the solution architect, what we will do is right from scratch. That means we will be spending time before going to the solution architect. Minimum 5 to 6 hours of time we will be spending on this basics. Minimum it is 5 to 6. It may extend. Okay. Now, what is required for basics? We'll be covering this part like basics of computers, virtualization, installation of Linux and virtualization, and basics of Linux, how to install the packages, uninstalling the packages, all those things we will discuss. Then we will be discussing about cloud practitioner. Then we will be taking you to the AWS solution architect. In solution architect, what we will do here in AWS website, whatever the contents they have committed, all those contents will be covered. We'll start from the scratch with building the servers in AWS, and we'll take you to the storage, different types of storages like elastic block storage, S3 buckets, EFS, elastic file system, and we'll be taking you to the database, and we'll be taking you to the security, and we'll be taking you to the containerization as well as infrastructure setup. We'll be taking you in. Okay, this is what the topics which we will cover in AWS. Now, once if you have completed this course, that indicates that we'll be training you according to the certification point of view, as well as minimum 3 to 4 years of experience kind of knowledge we'll be sharing to you. That we'll do in AWS. Now, let me go to the DevOps. Now, what do you mean by a DevOps? As name itself says that development and operations teams working together. Now, in layman terminology, what is DevOps means? There are now, whenever any product or any kind of application or any kind of software needs to be developed from the development stage to delivering stage, we need some kind of process. That process needs to be automated. Basically, we will use this kind of process, DevOps process. Now, if there is no DevOps process, what kind of process we are going to follow before? If you ask me, yes, there are different types of processes which is followed. One is waterfall model. Before we used to use something called waterfall model. Then we have moved to the agile model. Now we are using something called DevOps. Now, what kind of lag, what kind of facility we are not getting in the waterfall model? Why people wanted to go from waterfall model to agile? Why agile model to we are moving to DevOps model? We'll understand here in this course. Now, when we started this DevOps, basically, when we wanted to start this DevOps, basic requirement is Linux administration. Before going to this DevOps, first we will do the Linux administration part. Linux administration in the sense, installation of Linux, how to install the Linux, how to manage the Linux, how to create a partitions, and how to install the packages, like it can be RPM or EM or APT commands. We'll understand detailedly, and we'll be discussing about networking concepts. Networking concepts in the sense like what is OSI model and TCP/IP model, how to set the IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, DNS, broadcast, ICMP, how to implement the security, all those things we'll be understanding in the networking. This will be spending minimum 5 to 7 hours of time on Linux part. As I said earlier, most of the servers are built on Linux. That is the reason we are focusing here. If you require on Windows, we don't mind. We'll be covering the Windows topics also. Now, one more important thing you should understand here, DevOps is not a program. It is a culture. which any organization or any project will incorporate some kind of model. Now, DevOps will consist of tools. Now, what is this tools? This all are some of the tools. It is not limited. There are different tools which will be used in the industry. Now, before going to these tools, what we will understand here is what is DevOps. Now, when any product needs to be developed and deployed to the production environment, right from developing stage to production environment, we need some kind of process. Initial stage, initial days, we used to use something called waterfall model. From waterfall model to what kind of disadvantages, why people wanted to go to agile model to DevOps, we'll understand here. And here in the DevOps, we'll be understanding different types of tools to automate the tasks. Now, what do you mean by automating the task? For example, think that there is a developer who develops the product. It can be a single developer or multiple developers. Developer will develop a product. Now, once developer has written some kind of source code, he needs some kind of central location where he needs to store the code in the central location. We'll use something called GitHub or GitLab. That means we need some kind of location to store the code. Okay, let me write it the other way around. Location to store the code. Now, once if you store that code, we have to pull that code and we need to build that code. That means we need a dev environment for building the code. Once if you build that code in the developer environment, now we need to test that code. We need to test the code. Now, once that code has been tested and it is successful, it should be delivered to the production environment. This is the basic stage. There are a lot more stages which can be incorporated in the middle. That will change from project to project or company's culture to company's culture. Now to automate this task, I mean to say right from developers developing stage to keeping your code in the central location and fetching that code to the dev environment and building that code and testing that code and delivering to the production environment. This to do manually, it used to consume lot of time. Not only it used to consume lot of time, there won't be single person who will be doing all this activity. There will be a separate departments. I mean to say developer team will be developing the developer kind of activities, and there will be a separate team, Git admin Git admin will be taking care about Git repositories. Dev team will be taking care of infrastructure team. Test team will be taking care of test environment. Production team will be taking care of release managers or production teams. Now between these different teams to collaborate, it used to take a lot of time. Now, to overcome this problem, as a operations, by understanding these tools, basically we'll be automating right from development stage to delivering the product to the production environment. We'll be automating the task with the help of these tools. Now, let us see one by one. Now, one of the tools what we will be understanding here is GitLab or GitHub. Now, GitLab and GitHub is a tool which will help you to keep your code in the central location. When you get any kind of product development requirement, there won't be one developer. There are many developers who will be working on that. That means we need some location where you wanted to keep all the code in the central location so that multiple developers collaboratively can work on that code. Okay, basically we will be using this tool, GitLab and GitHub. This will be spending 7 to 10 hours of time to understand this. 7 to 10 hours of time to understanding this. Then we will be understanding the Jenkins. Jenkins is to understand about CI and CD. What do you mean by CI and CD? CI stands for continuous integration, CD stands for continuous deployment. That means now this is the basic process which we took. The developers will develop the code. They are going to keep the code in the central location called GitHub or GitLab. Now you have to download that code. After downloading that code, we need to build the code. Once if it is built, that code, that artifacts which is generated needs to be deployed on the test environment. Test team is going to check the application. If all the functionalities as expected, if it is working, it needs to be delivered on the production environment. Okay, now there are different applications and different infrastructures. We need some kind of tool needs to be communicated. Basically, we use this Jenkins. Jenkins is basically a tool which will help you to do CI and CD, continuous integration and continuous deliverables. Now, what do you mean by continuous integration? Now, as I said, with the help of Jenkins, it can able to communicate with the Git, it can able to communicate with GitHub, it can able to communicate with the infrastructure, it can able to communicate with the test, it can able to communicate with the servers, all those things. Jenkins will consist of vast kind of plugins which will help you to communicate with different infrastructure, different applications and different tools to get integrated with each other. That will be understanding in the Jenkins. There is no one tool, but majority of the companies will be using this tool. That is the reason we are using this Jenkins. If you want, you can go for Bamboo, Team CA. There are different tools which is used. Then we'll be understanding about containerization. Docker is basically a containerization. What do you mean by a containerization? Once developer develops some kind of product, we need some kind of infrastructure to deploy that code. Basically, before when they need to deploy, they used to use some kind of physical infrastructure. In nowadays, to make our life easy, developers when developing stage itself, they used to develop the code on containers. Now, once that product is developed on the containers, it is very easy to move from one infrastructure to other infrastructure. What do you mean by infrastructure? It can be on-premises, or it can be a cloud, or it can be a virtualization. That means once if you have built your code inside a containerization with minimum effort, you can move from one infrastructure to other infrastructure. What is that infrastructure? It can be a cloud, or it can be a virtualization, or it can be on-premises. Very easily within fraction of minutes and seconds, you can move. Then we will be understanding about Kubernetes. Kubernetes is nothing but basically orchestration tool. Now, if you see here, the advanced topic of Docker Swarm. Docker Swarm is also a orchestration tool, and Kubernetes is advanced version of orchestration tool. Now, what do you mean by a orchestration? Now, when you run this container on some infrastructure, there might be a chances where your infrastructure can go down. I mean to say your servers can go down. Now, to overcome that problem, with the help of orchestration tool, you can constantly monitor this container. Due to some reasons, it can be a server issue, or it can be a server OS issue, or it can be a container issue. If this container goes down within fraction of seconds, it may build on different server. Not only it is going to build the server, on top of that, it is going to make you to run this run the container and start providing the services. And not only it is going to provide the services, there is a concept of high availability, even that can be implemented. Any traffic comes to this load balancer, this load balancer, half of the traffic can be diverted to the container one, half of the traffic can be diverted to do container two. That is how it can balance the load. Due to some reasons, if this container goes down, this orchestration tool will help you to create one more new container, and with the help of this load balancer, it will distribute the traffic among that we'll be understanding here in Docker and Kubernetes. Then we'll go through the Ansible. We'll understand here Ansible. Then we'll understand the Ansible. Now, what is this Ansible? Ansible is basically configuration management tool. Now, what do you mean by a configuration management? Think that you have got a server in your organization, any packages, or if I wanted to degrade any packages, or if I wanted to deploy some containers, I wanted to remove containers, running containers, I wanted to upgrade some kind of software from lower version to higher version, or higher version to lower version, we can do it. All these things can be achieved with some kind of commands, some kind of configurations. But in for one mission, it is very easy to execute that commands, manual commands, it is very easy. But if you see in the real time, what will happen? This servers, you will not have one server, there will be a many servers, hundreds of servers. Now, suppose if you wanted to upgrade any configurations or degrade any configuration, hundreds of servers, all these 10 or 20 commands which you have executed needs to be executed in all the hundreds of missions. Instead of executing all the hundreds of missions, what we can do in single place with the help of Ansible, you can write some kind of playbooks. These playbooks will help you to execute, depends on the configurations what you wanted to do, that can be executed at single point of time in all the hundreds of servers. That means this playbook will help you to the configuration changes of the server from the single location to all that hundreds of servers, that will be understanding here. Now, these are the tools where we will be focusing, like Git, GitHub, Jenkins, Docker, and Kubernetes, and we will be understanding this. Basically, Git will help you to manage your source code, version controller tool. Jenkins will help you to do CA and CD. Docker and Kubernetes is a containerization. Ansible is basically a configuration management tool. Okay, now all these tools to automate, we can use independently its own configurations or its own scripts, or you can use something called shell script on Python. We will understand here shell script on Python to do some kind of automate that tasks. We'll understand here. Okay, now if you divide this, I mean to say, if you separate this AWS and DevOps, AWS will help you to build a infrastructure, to build a servers, to build a storage, to build a network, and to secure your infrastructure. Inside that infrastructure, if you wanted to develop some kind of product, right from development stage to delivering to the production environment, basically we will understand this DevOps. Okay, now this DevOps, there is no restriction. You should be implemented on the cloud. You can implement on premises also. That's up to you where you will configure. Okay, this both, I mean to say AWS standalone will be spending minimum 50 hours of time, and DevOps standalone will be spending 50 hours of time. And once if we have completed this course, that indicates that we will be training you to the certification level, as well as minimum 3 to 4 years of experience level we will be training you in. Any doubts here, Sarvana?
Yeah, sir, it was well cleared. If I have anything, I will check and once again confirm with you back. Yeah. Thank you so much.